April 16th, 2019. Would you please rise? And Councilman Blackhurst, you're over there. Would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Give Natalie a chance to catch your roll. Are you ready? Madam City Clerk, would you please call roll?
Mayor Kreitzer?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Edwards?
Present.
Councilmember Baca?
Here.
Councilmember Blackhurst?
Present.
Councilmember Humbert?
Here.
Councilmember Johnston?
Present.
Councilmember Mills?
Here.
Councilmember Pollock? Here. Councilmember Wallen?
Here.
You have a quorum, Your Honor.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the regular agenda. Mr. Rodriguez, is there any additions or changes to tonight's agenda?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. It's a pleasure to be back with you tonight. There are no changes to tonight's agenda. Thank you.
What's the pleasure of council? Councilman Humbert.
I move we approve the agenda as presented.
We got a motion? Councilman Johnston?
Be happy to second.
Of a proper motion and a second to approve tonight's agenda. Any discussion on the matter? Hearing none, roll call vote. All votes cast. Motion passes by a vote of 9-0. Next on the agenda is consent agenda. Madam City Clerk, would you please read into the record tonight's consent agenda?
Item 3A, approval of the March 19th, 2019 City Council minutes. Item 3B, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Brighton, Colorado, authorizing the submittal of a Colorado Department of Local Affairs DOLA grant application in the amount not to exceed $50,000 and authorizing the city manager to execute the grant application and upon award thereof to conduct good faith negotiations for finalizing a reasonable grant agreement with DOLA for consideration by the City Council.
Thank you. What's the pleasure of council? Councilman Blackhurst.
Yes, I'd make a motion to approve that consent agenda.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Councilman Mills.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd be happy to second that motion.
I have a proper motion and a second to approve tonight's consent agenda. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Roll call vote. All votes cast. Motion passes by a vote of 9-0. Next on the agenda is ceremonies. We have quite a few proclamations tonight. First proclamation is National Arbor Day Celebration Proclamation. And I will read the proclamation. Proclamation of the City of Brighton, National Arbor Day Celebration, April 26, 2019. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and whereas Arbor Day is now observed through the nation and the world, and whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cutting heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. And whereas Brighton has been recognized as a Tree City USA for each of the past 33 years by the National Arbor Day Foundation and desire to continue its tree planting ways. Now, therefore, I, Kenneth J. Kreitzer, Mayor of the City of Brighton, Colorado, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim April 26, 2019 as National Arbor Day in the City of Brighton, and I urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support the efforts to protect our trees and our woodlands. And further, I urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations. Dated this 16th day of April, 2019. What's the pleasure of council? Councilman Mills.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to approve this proclamation for National Arbor Day celebration.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Councilwoman Baca.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll go ahead and second that.
I Have a proper motion and a second to approve this proclamation. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote. All votes cast. Motion passes by a vote of 9-0. Mr. Rodriguez, I think we have some special people in the audience tonight.
Absolutely, thank you. We've got Adam Rodebeck and Kyle Sylvester from our Forestry Division of our Parks and Recreation Department here to receive the proclamation. And so I'll ask you gentlemen to go ahead and come on up and meet the mayor at the lectern, if you will.
We'll start with proclamation. There we go. There we go. Thank you. Appreciate that. The podium is yours. Now we'll stand off to the side here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Council. So as the proclamation kind of mentioned, trees are a lot more vital than just simply wood and fresh air. They provide habitat for wildlife. They help with energy costs from shade in the summer to protection in the winter. They help absorb pollution and help decrease stormwater runoff. And with that, their values always increase with time. As the trees get bigger, so does their value. And as the proclamation stated, this is the 33rd year that the city of Brighton has been a Tree City USA. And on top of that, it is the 8th year that the city has won the Growth Award. In order to get a Growth Award, the city must meet a number of different criteria. And this year we fit 3 of those criteria. The first is an interpretive program, which can be found at Midland Park. That's an arboretum that the high school helped us plant about 3 years ago that has a number of different conifer trees that can be found in the region. It has a path and some interpretive signage that shows people what they're looking at and just a real good representation of what can be found in the area. The third criteria we met is a new significant tree planting. That was completed just about a year ago by a contractor who planted over 50 trees for us citywide. They're along Bromley, EVAC, the police department, and a few other areas. It's a real big deal for us because it's something that would take us weeks to complete, and they did it in a matter of just days and really raised the overall tree canopy for the city. The third one that we met is a growing contract. That is at our Autumn Nursery, which is a local nursery that grows seedlings for us that they grow out to a size that's more useful for us in parks and in public areas. We have nearly 200 trees there, and next week we'll be getting another 60 or so. This is also the first year that we were able to dig some of our trees. That means they're now able to be planted in our parks and our right-of-ways and used for public spaces. So on top of that, there's just a few more items in the forestry department that are coming up that I wanted to talk about. The first is our tree program. That's a program where we buy trees that do really well in this area that you can't always find at the local nurseries. And they're also of a size that's a lot more manageable for the general public. Sometimes the trees that you find around here either don't do well or they're just far too large for the average person to carry and plant. With that, we purchase these trees and then sell them back at cost to the citizens of Brighton. Then this Saturday, they will be picking those trees up. We sold nearly 100 of them. There's still a few more for sale, but whatever doesn't sell, we then utilize for ourselves in our parks and public spaces. The next item I wanted to talk about is the Senior Ditch Day. The last 2 years, the high school seniors, in lieu of their ditch day, well, for the last 13 years, I should say, they've done it for us throughout the city, but the last 2 years, they did them at Fairview Cemetery and Elmwood Cemetery, and they planted nearly 100 trees for us, of which I only know one that has died, which is a really good success. This year, it will be held on May 3rd at the Adult Sport Complex, in which they will be planting nearly just over 40 trees. It normally takes them about 2 hours to do, which again is a massive planning that would take us forever to complete, but they do it in a very short time, and it's a great opportunity for them to help the community and help us out. The final thing that I wanted to talk about is the 5th grade poster contest. That's a contest where 5th graders are given the opportunity to draw a poster that shows how we celebrate trees in our community. Schools from throughout the city turn in their posters to us, and all the schools that participate are then voted on at the park board meeting. A winner from each school is chosen, and then an overall winner. The winner from each school will be presented next week. Their posters will be displayed next week at the state capitol. And then for the winner, we will go to their school on the 26th and celebrate Arbor Day with them, where we will plant a tree, hand out saplings, and just tell them a little bit more about Arbor Day. And with that, I'd like to invite Emma Fankhauser up here to accept an award. She was the overall winner from Zion Lutheran School. And you can see her poster. It's a great poster.
Come on in here. I won't bite. There you go. That's for you. Congratulations. And I'm going to come to your school and you plant that tree, okay?
And we also have an award for the second place, who I have not seen tonight, so we will make sure she receives it. Giselle Luna from First Art Christian Academy. Thank you.
What a wonderful program, and I think that's 2 years in a row for Zion, isn't it? Because we were at Zion last year, so looking forward to being there. Next on the agenda is the National Day of Prayer proclamation. National Day of Prayer, May 2nd, 2019. Whereas the history of our nation is indelibly marked with the role that prayer has played in the lives of individual Americans and indeed the United States as a whole. And whereas many of our greatest leaders have always turned to prayer in times of crisis, and whereas we acknowledge that prayer is a deeply personal and individual experience, the way in which it finds expression depends on our individual dispositions as well as our religious convictions. And whereas the virtues of prayer have a common bond, our hope and aspiration, our sorrows and fears, and deepest remorse and renewed resolve, our thanks and joyful praise, and most importantly, our love, all turned towards God of our choice. And whereas America was founded upon the freedom to worship according to the dictates of our own consciousness. Now, therefore, I, Kenneth J. Kreitzer, the mayor of the city of Brighton, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim Thursday, May 2nd, 2019, as National Day of Prayer in the city of Brighton, and encourage our citizens to join in prayer, asking that God's light may illuminate the minds and hearts of our people and our leaders, so that we may meet the challenges that lie before us with courage and wisdom and justice. Dated the 16th day of April, 2019. What's the pleasure of council? Councilman Humbert.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve the proclamation for National Day of Prayer, May 2nd, 2019.
A motion, do I have a second? Councilman Mills.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd be happy to second that motion.
I have a proper motion and a second. Is there any further discussion or comment? Hearing none, roll call vote. All votes cast. Motion passes by a vote of 9-0. Mr. Rodriguez, who's in the audience tonight to accept this?
Yes, Mayor and Council, we have Army Marquez.
I was going to say stay.
We got to start with that.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. And the podium is yours.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor, City Councils, and the City Manager. And I see we have a new City Attorney. What happened to my Margaret? I retire and you retire her? Anyway, I just want to thank the city for allowing, it's 26 years that we've had prayer in Brighton. And I know that without prayer, we wouldn't have the prosperity that we have here in Brighton. Every time I come into Brighton, because I live in Loch Buoy, there's new buildings and everything, but I haven't seen a Sam's. Would you please get a Sam's over here? I don't want to go all the way to Thornton. But anyway, I would like to pray for you. Would you bow your heads? Father, we just come before you. We exalt you, we praise you, and we worship you. Father, I thank you that we have this opportunity to pray, to lift your name on high. Father, it's not by coincidence that Brighton is Brighton. We are a bright light onto other communities, Fort Lupton, Hudson, Commerce City, North Glen, Westminster, all these surrounding areas. We are a bright light onto them and an example of what city should be. Father, I know that you know all the work this city does and the city council. Lord, give them the strength that they need and just give them rest because I know they work hard. Father, I just thank you that every door to Brighton is closed for the enemy. I know that you have angels at every opening on 76, 85. Father, from the north to the south, from the east to the west. Father, we thank you also for all these people that are here, all these youth, all these young people here. Father, protect them from the evil that is out there. And we just want to thank you and give you all the glory. Everything that was accomplished today, to you be the glory. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you again.
Thank you, Remy. Always special to have her come and visit us. Next item on the agenda is a proclamation for Suicide Prevention Education and Awareness Knowledge Week. Whereas Colorado's 9th in the nation for suicide deaths, and whereas suicide is now the second leading cause of all deaths in the state of Colorado among young people between the ages of 10 and 24. And whereas 23% of Colorado high school students indicate feeling sad or hopeless almost every day for 2 weeks or more during a 12-month period. And whereas the stigma associated with mental illness and suicidally works against suicide prevention by discouraging persons at risk for suicide from seeking life-saving help and further traumatizes survivors of suicide. And whereas the Brighton Youth Commission intends to expand citywide suicide prevention efforts and believes suicide prevention efforts should be developed and encouraged. And whereas together we can increase awareness about suicide prevention, decrease its frequency, provide hope to survivors, and build a caring, supportive community. Now, therefore, I, Kenneth J. Kreitzer, Mayor of the City of Brighton, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim April 28th to May 4th, 2019, as Suicide Prevention, Education, Awareness, and Knowledge, which is Speak Week in the City of Brighton, dated the 16th day of April, 2019. What's the pleasure of council? Councilwoman Baca?
Thank you, Mayor. It'd be my honor to make a motion to approve the Speak Week proclamation.
Councilmember Johnson?
I'm very proud to second that motion.
I have a proper motion and a second on this proclamation. Any further discussion or comments? Hearing none, roll call vote. All votes cast. Motion passes by a vote of 9-0. Mr. Rodriguez?
Thank you, Your Honor. Yeah, I'm going to ask Tanya Russell and for folks that have joined her this evening. Very cool shirts, by the way. I wanted to tell you that. Go ahead and come on up, and if you'd meet the mayor up at the podium. Thank you.
How do we want to do it?
Can we have you in the middle and have all the council stand? So we have.
All right, so we're going to go up closer to the guys, right?
We're going around. Oh, we're all going around? Okay, if you don't mind.
We have all the council stand. And I'm going to be presenting this. How's that? Is that what you wanted?
Yes. We're trying to get this podium. You're
Feel mayoral.
Yeah.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for taking the time to proclaim April 29th through May 4th Speak Week. My name is Stella Hindman, and I am the chair of the Brighton Youth Commission.
My name is Gianna Rocha, and I am the historian of the Brighton Youth Commission.
My name is Demi Sena, and I am on the Brighton Youth Commission.
Alrighty, so as Mayor stated, SPEAK stands for Suicide Prevention, Education, and Knowledge. It is exciting to think that we are about to enter our 8th year of SPEAK. Having been a part of planning SPEAK for the past 2 years, I can tell you that it is a lot of work. There is money to raise, people to communicate with, days to plan. Honestly, with all the small details, it's easy to lose sight of what we're really doing it for.
We have come across a few staggering facts to ground us and remember why. Suicide is now the second leading cause of all deaths in the state of Colorado among young people between the ages 10 to 24. The number of children and teens in the United States who have visited emergency rooms for suicidal thoughts and suicide attempts doubled between 2007 and 2015. While we share these to keep us grounded in our mission, this is not the true message of SPEAK. The true message of SPEAK is that together we can fight to break down the stigmas surrounding mental health and save lives.
We hope that you will help us spread the word of Speak Week. While we have activities happening at 13 schools in District 27J, there are 2 exciting opportunities for the entire community. Number 1, there are 2 one-hour QPR courses on Monday, April 29th, one at noon and one at 6:30 p.m. QPR is short for Question, Persuade, Refer, a program that teaches you how to spot the signs of suicide in your friends and loved ones, what questions to ask, and how to get them help. Number 2, our annual Speak 5K walk will take place Saturday, May 4th at Carmichael Park. Festivities start at 5 p.m., the walk at 7:15. Every walker will receive a lantern in order to let our light shine in moments of darkness. We hope to see you there. Thank you for your continued support.
Thank you. What a great activity. And what a great organization to pull it off. Outstanding. Very good. Next item on the agenda is item 5, public invited to be heard on matters not on the agenda. And I do have one request. Denny Burke. Denny, please come state your name and address for the record. You have 5 minutes.
Yep. My name's Denny Burke. My address is 267 North Main Street here in Brighton. And I'd like to know where my businesses are at 267 North Main Street. There's tons of cars parked on the street continuously. There was a Ford Expedition sitting on the street for 9 weeks with no license plates on it, and no one ever did a thing about it. So I think we have a serious parking problem between Freedom Way and Denver Street on the north end of Main Street, and I'd like to see something done about it. The shops that are around us down there have got cars everywhere on the street. It's ridiculous. And Long Speak from Main Street headed west is terrible. You can't even drive down it. 2 cars can hardly pass. There's so many cars there. And something really needs to be done about that. I mean, code enforcement I'm sure will agree with me on that. But I'd like to see something done, like 2-hour parking or something done different down there.
Okay. So we'll take that into advisement, Mr. Rodriguez.
Yes, we sure will. And one thing that I would suggest is before you leave today, if possible, we'll ask our police chief to visit with you for a few minutes and maybe get some more specifics. And then we'll make sure we have contact from you after that for any issues that you have going forward. And thank you for coming tonight and speaking with us.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burke. Next item on the agenda is item 7, ordinance for final consideration. 7A is an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Brighton, Colorado, repealing Ordinance 2175 in its entirety, establishing the Brighton Customer Assistance Program to replace existing program known as Good Neighbor, authorizing the Finance Department to continue to accept voluntary roundup contributions to such program, authorizing the city to accept additional one-time contributions towards the program, authorizing the city manager to establish policies and procedures for such program, and authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement for administration of such program. Mr. Rodriguez?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So this is an ordinance for final consideration, which means we have already presented to you the program, both at a study session and at a regular session meeting. However, if you have additional questions or have any additional feedback or input for us to hear prior to your consideration of it tonight, we'd be happy to entertain those. And I just want to tell you on behalf of staff, we're very eager to put a program like this forward for our residents. And the idea is actually we would have this roll out in May. And so if we could find your favor tonight to vote for it, then we will move forward on that. And if we can answer any questions or amend anything, just let us know. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Councilmember Blackhurst.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question. It says here that we're going to be repealing the old ordinance, obviously, to put this new program in place. But my concern was that we maintain the name of the Good Neighbor program, because Rex Bell at first was on council for 8 years. This is a real passion of his, and he really was the driving force behind getting this program up and running, and that was the suggested name that he had at that time. And I would hope we would continue to use that name as we go forward. That would be acceptable, or is that something we planned on?
So it wasn't. I appreciate that, and I'd invite staff maybe to come on up if you guys want to engage us on this part of the conversation. JD and Ron. The idea really was that the program, as it was structured, had difficulty keeping itself funded, and so we were sort of contemplating this idea of a fresh launch of something new. I think there may be a way, though, and this is where getting some feedback from staff would be good. Perhaps we could call that, instead of just roundup contributions, we could call those Good Neighbor contributions or something to that effect, so that we can keep some element of that. But the idea was to really have us launch from a marketing standpoint something altogether new and fresh from what we had previously, versus a reboot of that program, because it was one in which we just weren't getting a lot of involvement from the community on.
And I appreciate that. I understand where you're coming from, but I think the plans, as I understand, are to do a better job marketing in the future, so that we could make more people aware of the Roundup and how easy it is and what a big difference it can make in it. But I would just ask if we could use that terminology of the Good Neighbor program in some fashion. I understand it's quite a bit different program, but that would be my request.
Thank you for that. I don't know if you have input on that, JD, since you work with that kind of daily.
I do think that would be something we can incorporate. To Philip's point, if we could possibly insert that into the Roundup portion of it to keep that name tied to it. We did like the idea of kind of a new, clean, fresh start, but I definitely understand where you're coming from, so we will absolutely look into incorporating that into the Roundup portion of the program.
Very good. Any other questions or comments? This is a final reading, and so is there anybody in the audience who would like to speak on this matter? Hearing none, what is the pleasure of council? Councilman Blackhurst.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd be happy to make a motion to approve the final reading of this ordinance 7A. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
I'd like to second that motion.
I have a proper motion and a second on this item. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote. All votes cast. Motion passes by a vote of 9-0. Thank you. Thank you for your work on that. I think that's a real win-win for our community. Next item on the agenda is item 8, resolutions. Item 8A is a resolution of the City Council of the City of Brighton, Colorado, accepting the conservation easement for the Murata property located at 14151 Potomac Street, Brighton, Colorado, in favor of the City of Brighton and authorizing the mayor to sign and execute the easement and other documents as required. Mr. Rodriguez, who's presenting?
Thank you. I'll ask our Director of Parks and Recreation, Gary Wardle, to come and present this item and seek your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. Mayor and members of City Council, tonight before you is a resolution accepting the conservation easement on the Murata property, which is located at 14151 Potomac. The strategic plan focus area is facilities, amenities, and open space. The map shows the Murata property right here. It's 38 acres in size. The property includes 40 shares of the Fulton Ditch also. Adams County will be the owner of the property at the end of the day. The Conservation Fund has purchased the property from Steve Murata. The final transfer of the property from Adams County, or from the Conservation Fund to Adams County, requires that conservation be placed on it by the Adams County Open Space Fund. The county has requested that the city accept the conservation easement. This will be the second conservation easement we hold for the county. The other one is the Willow Bay property. The county actually holds 3 conservation easements for the city of Brighton. They have the Letterly property, the Hattendorf property, and the Eagle Preserve property. Our requirements of holding this easement is that we tour the site once a year, ensure that the county is following all of the stipulations in the conservation easement, make a report, and those are the extent of what we have to do. I think they're trying to close this property back to Adams County by the end of the month, and so we get this approved, they'll be ready to finish that. With that, I can answer any questions.
Thank you, Gary. Questions or comments from council? Pretty clean deal. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah. Since it does become under our purview at this point in time, how will the property now be used and serviced?
It'll be continue to be farmed as it is today. That's a requirement of the conservation easement.
Okay. So is that somebody who comes to us? Because I know that we have approved a few farmers in the past, or is the current farmer going to continue? How's that going to happen?
Petraco has an agreement to continue to farm the property, but they have a lease with Adams County since Adams County is the owner. We won't approve this one. We only approve leases on the properties we own. Since we don't own the property, it would stay with Adams County.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? What's the pleasure, council? Councilmember Humbert.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve the resolution of the City Council accepting the conservation easement for the Murata property at 14151 Potomac Street in Brighton. And I think it's a splendid idea.
There you go. Right there in the valley. Councilmember Johnston?
I'd be happy to second.
Have a proper motion and a second on this topic. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote. All votes cast. Motion passes by a vote of 9-0.
Thank you for your support.
Gary. Next item on the agenda is item 8B, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Brighton, Colorado, accepting the bid of TCC Corporation and awarding the contract for demolition and replacement of entryway concrete and heating system at the Recreation Center, project number 19016 to TCC Corporation in the amount of $264,891, authorizing a 2019 budget amendment in the amount of $40,000, and authorizing the mayor to sign the contract on behalf of the city and the city clerk to attest thereto. Mr. Rodriguez, who's presenting tonight?
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm going to ask Jeffrey Hewlett, our Assistant Director of Recreation, to present and seek your favor on this item as well. Jeffrey?
Good evening. So I'm presenting for the entryway concrete and heating replacement. Our strategic focus areas are safe, active, and engaged community, facilities, amenities, and open space. This is a few pictures of our existing entryway. You can see where it's starting to fail here. This project also includes the replacement of the lighted bollards in the entryway. You can see from the corner here that they're also starting to show their age. The existing entryway is about 15 years old, so it's seen its useful life. The heating system underneath the entryway is also starting to fail, so we're looking to replace that too with a much more comprehensive and efficient heating system than we have now. The existing heating system is electric, and we're looking to do basically a gas-fired glycol system. So it'll have pipes running underneath to melt any snow collection on the entryway. The other thing we're doing, the existing heating system ends where you can see the stamped concrete end. That's approximately in this area here. We're looking to tear out all the way to the access ramp, the accessible ramp from the parking lot, and extend that heating system all the way out to there. So that'll help us tremendously from a safety standpoint. So the project does include the demolition of the existing stamped concrete and electric heating system. The replacement will include a gas-fired heating system. The concrete itself will have a broom finish and a light saw cut design, so we'll get away from the stamped concrete. One of the things you can see back here that we added with the stamped is this covering that allowed a little smoother entryway. And although the stamped concrete does meet ADA requirements, we found that we really needed to kind of smooth that out a little bit. Getting away from the stamped will also help with any snow removal should it become necessary. The idea that it won't be, but should it become necessary on an extreme event, the smooth finish won't collect snow like the stamped concrete does. As I said, that it will replace. It'll include the lighted bollards. It'll extend to the parking lot, and as I said, they're both starting to fail, and that's causing a safety issue. We do expect also with the new system to see much less wear and tear in the rec center because not as much grit will be tracked in, which causes wear and tear on the carpet and additional cleaning. We're accomplishing the funding through the rec capital budget. $235 was originally budgeted. We need $40,000 from the rec center controlled maintenance. The total of $275 does include about a 4% contingency. The bidding did occur through our procurement process. We did receive 2 bids, and we are proposing that we award the bid to TCC Corporation in the amount of $264,891 for the Recreation Center entry concrete and heating replacement project, an additional $40,000 budget amendment to complete the project. Questions?
Councilmember Johnston.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Why? It just seems weird. We've got concrete and heating. Why was there only 2 bids? There's just so many companies that do that. I find it weird we only got 2 bids. Is that normal?
I really can't answer whether that's normal or not. It was advertised through Rocky Mountain Bid Network. It went through the procurement process, and it was put out there. We did have a pre-bid, and the 2 bids are what we received.
And how long were they out?
It was several weeks that they were on the bid before the pre-bid that it was on but I don't know that exact time.
I know those are obscure questions. It just looked weird, but thanks a lot. Well done.
Right.
Hope this gets done quick.
Thank you.
Councilmember Mills.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not sure if I have questions yet, but I do want to kind of make a comment that this project, and I'm not a concrete person by any means, but for that price, I can rebuild my house. So that is a lot of money, and I'm just concerned about how much money we're spending on concrete and heating of the concrete. So that's it.
Would anybody like to respond to that? Mayor Pro Tem.
Hi.
I think an important thing to recognize is heating the concrete saves the park maintenance guys a lot of money and creates a lot of safety for the patrons entering the rec center because it's on the north side of the building. And if we don't melt the snow and the ice, then it becomes an ice. And the park guys are out there shoveling snow regularly. And with this ice melting system, we won't do very small amount of snow shoveling. And so over the long run, it seems like a lot of money, but over the life of the system, it's going to save us a lot of money in shoveling snow and providing safety so we don't have slip hazards for our citizens too.
The existing system we have now has lasted about 15 years. So we would expect to see at least that.
Mayor,
I was just going to add to that is I assume you're going clear up to the building itself and ripping
Yes.
out all the old concrete and,
Correct.
and everything. And you probably have, I don't know, the square footage there. I would have to think that you're probably in excess of, 2,500, 3,000 square feet?
That's pretty close.
Yeah.
We're ripping out a little bit more than we're replacing, and I'm not sure I have that in the picture, but I'll see if I can. It's going to be hard to see, but the concrete extends around these trees.
Right.
And we're ripping that. It's just sort of it's just aesthetics. And we're tearing that out, but we're not replacing that. That's just going to be replaced by mulch beds. So we're tearing out a little bit more than we're replacing, but it's in the neighborhood of 3,000 feet.
Yeah. And then you talk about that post there. Looks like somebody's been running into the bottom of that.
Some of them have, I think, seen some contact, but they're also just starting to crumble.
Okay. Is there going to be a different kind of design on those? Or?
It'll look a little more modern. It'll be more of a post, but there'll also be lit, and it'll be LED, so they'll be efficient.
Right, on this. And I would probably also add that besides just the concrete, you've got the entire heating system that has to pump all this stuff. And I'm not sure where that's actually going to be located. That's probably going to be located inside the building.
It will. Right in the corner here is the custodial closet.
Okay.
And there'll be 2 boilers that'll be located in that closet. And so the pipes will run, obviously, interlaced through the system and then through the ground, and then we'll come up through the slab and into that. Because of the square footage we're proposing with this project, or that we'd like to do through this project, we need 2 boilers.
Right.
And that's certainly up the cost. But the idea is to really, with the electric heating system, it worked okay from the start. And then over the years, it's worked less and less efficiently. And the idea, especially with extending it all the way out to the parking lot, is have a much more efficient system that's going to work much better. As Gary said, we face north, and it certainly is an issue.
Well, I would think that it would. Thank you.
Councilmember Wallen.
Thank you. Where does all the water go when it melts?
The entire
is that
thing,
part of the underneath infrastructure of it, or does it just go out into the?
It'll slope out into the circle.
And it just dissipates out of the circle, and no
Into
ice builds up from there.
Into the curb and gutter here.
Okay. And then what's the plan while the entryway is being worked on?
We'll do this
for
during
people to. Oh, okay.
Sorry, I didn't let you finish. We'll do it during shutdown.
All right. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? I know as somebody who uses that on winter mornings, the north facing is a definite issue, and it gets a little dicey walking up there, and you just, I know it's expensive, but I think that we're also answering a big liability issue as well. I can see that quite readily. Any other questions or comments? What's the pleasure of council? Mayor Pro Tem?
I'd like to make the motion that we approve Resolution 8B as in boy.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Councilwoman Pollack?
Thank you, Your Honor, and I would be happy to second that motion.
Mayor Mary Ellen, change yours from a request to speak to a second. There you go. Have a proper motion and a second. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, roll call vote. All votes cast. Motion passes by a vote of 9-0. Thank you, Jeffrey. But I don't think you're going anywhere.
I'm not. You're not that quite
Next
done
item
with
on
me
the
yet.
agenda is item 8C, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Brighton, Colorado, accepting the bid of SEM Sales and Services and awarding the contract for demolition and replacement of regenerative media filters at the Oasis Water Park project number 19031 to SEM Sales and Service. Sounds like we're getting knee work done, stem cells. SEM Sales and Service in the amount of $165,719.31, authorizing a 2019 budget amendment in the amount of $40,000, and authorizing the mayor to sign the contract on behalf of the city and the city clerk to attest thereto. Mr. Rodriguez?
I'll ask Mayor and Council, I'll ask Jeffrey to continue on this item as well.
Thank you. Our strategic focus areas for the project are safe, active, and engaged community, facilities, amenities, and open space. Our existing filters are DE filters, DE standing for diatomaceous earth. They're one filter for each pool out at the Oasis. Inside these filters are cylinders, and those cylinders are covered by socks. And they're connected and sealed with O-rings. Every year, the top of the filters have to be popped off, and the filters need maintenance every year. Socks need replacing. All the O-rings need replacing. There's just maintenance that happens every year with these filters. We're proposing that we demo the existing DE filters and replace with high-rate sand filters. We're entering our 8th season of operation with the original filters. The real issue is the company that manufactured the original filters is no longer in business. Because of that, we can't get replacement parts to do our maintenance. And if we can't get replacement parts, we can't do maintenance, and the filters really stop working. They'll lose some efficiency, and then they'll stop working altogether. And so if we can't get the parts, we can't keep up the filters, and therefore they just need to be replaced. We're accomplishing this through the rec capital budget, originally budgeted $140,000 from rec center controlled maintenance through a budget amendment. We did bid through the city's procurement process. Our two proposals were CEM Sales and Service and Capital City Mechanical. We're recommending that we award the bid to CEM Sales and Service in the amount of $165,719.31. And I'll take questions.
Questions of Jeffrey? What would be the pleasure of council then? Mayor Pro Tem has a question.
Okay, you talk about these becoming sand filters simply based upon what I understand sand is. We don't have to worry about these people going out of business and not being able to service these kind of filters?
No, I don't think we do.
Okay.
Certainly things happen beyond our control, but the company that we're working with is a company that I've dealt with in various positions for 30 years. They've done lots of work for us. They're a very highly regarded company. The filters they're speccing are Neptune Bensons, which are standard in the industry, and they've been around quite some time. And we don't anticipate that happening. If the very unforeseen thing were to happen, they're really much more standard parts than a DE filter. It's a much simpler operation. It's much easier to use, and things do break, but we wouldn't anticipate any problem with replacement parts.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I was surprised when, you still think the Oasis is brand new. And I was surprised that, 8 years and 3 months out of the year that we're into this, but I understand the fact that, if you can't get the parts, you can't get the parts. So
it's really what it is.
It's true. Okay. Councilwoman Pollack.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution as presented.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Councilman, oh gosh, I got both of them down there going after it there. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to second that motion.
Of a proper motion and a second on this item. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote. All votes cast. Motion it passes by a vote of 9-0. Thank you, Jeffrey.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is item 8D, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Brighton, Colorado, approving the third amendment to the development agreement for the Brighton Crossing subdivision filing number 3, described as a part of the southwest quarter of Section 3, Township 1, South, Range 66 West of the 6th Principal Meridian, City of Brighton, County of Adams, State of Colorado, and authorizing the mayor to execute said third agreement on behalf of the city. Mr. Rodriguez, who's presenting this?
Thank you, Your Honor. Mayor Council, I would like to ask Lauren Simmons, our senior planner out of the Community Development Department, to come present this item to you. Lauren?
Thank you. Good evening. The item before you is an agreement amendment, development agreement for Brighton Crossing, filing 3 third amendment. This is part of the strategic focus area for recognizable and well-planned communities. So Brighton Crossing Filing 3 is located, well, generally, this portion of Brighton Crossing Filing 3 is located at the northwest corner of 50th and Bridge, as you can see here on this slide in the yellow star. So as we zoom in, you can see this portion that we're speaking of this evening is 21.58 acres. It's immediately across the street from the King Super Shopping Center and to the north of the rec center and pad sites for Brighton Crossing Filing 3, a different amendment. So we're at the platting and development agreement stage process. The next step will be site plans for each of the sites and permitting for the eventual buildings. So this property has been in the city for quite some time. It was annexed and initially zoned in 1986. It was part of the Bromley Park and it was set aside for commercial development. Brighton Crossing Filing 3 was initially platted in 2003. The applicant is proposing a replat of this portion of Brighton Crossing Filing 3 in order to deepen the lots along 50th and Bridge and to add 2 lots to Block 17. The zoning map for this property shows commercial as part of Bromley Park, and the future land use map also calls for commercial property. So this evening, we're looking at a request for a development agreement. There are a total of 9 lots in this plat, which is not, the plat is an attachment to the development agreement, but is not before you for approval, just the agreement amendment. There are 9 lots and 4 points of access. 2 of those points of access are designed to be full movement, and the other 2 are designed to be right in. So on this slide here, you'll see the northernmost access. This is across the street from the existing access at King Supers, would be full movement. To the south, to here at Mount Bierstead, that would also be designed to be full movement. That is across from Mount Bierstead, aligning to the south directly, that's constructed. The 2 right-in movements would be between those. The first would be here, and the second would be here, just south of the King Supers entrance. The agreement amendment addresses infrastructure and development requirements for roads, utilities, and stormwater. So let's dive in. So there are 2 phases being proposed by the developer. I'll describe the first phase. And first, just let me orient you a little bit to the map. So we've got, of course, 50th Avenue here, Avenue running north-south, Bridge Street running east-west to the south. Right here, Block 17 is this block right here. And this lot up here is known as Block 18, Lot 1, Block 18. There are 2 roadways. There's the existing, well, not existing, but to the south it's existing Mount Bierstead Drive. And then to the east-west street will be known as Bowie Drive. That is not constructed at this time, but is being proposed. And there's also Tract JJ. Tract JJ is a private tract that will provide access, internal access to these lots from the main roadway. So there will not be driveways from these individual lots onto 50th and Bridge, just the shared access points. With phase 1, there'll be 2 points of access constructed, one providing a full movement and the other providing at least a right-in. Tract JJ, adjacent to the first lot, is to be constructed, and that's prior to the issuance of the first CO to that lot. In addition, the developer is responsible for their pro rata share of the traffic signals at Mount Bierstead and Bridge Street and Bowie and 50th. Part 2 of phase 1 is the rest of blocks 2 through 8 of block 17 and lot 1 of block 18. So that's essentially all these the smaller lots here are known as phase 1. With the first, the completion, after the issuance of the second building permit, either Tract JJ must be completed in its entirety. Both full width accesses from Mount Bierstead and Bowie must be completed, and the completion of a 10-foot wide trail on the east side of Mount Bierstead to Bowie, and that's in purple on this slide here. That connects to an existing trail to the south that's constructed and will eventually follow through to the north to an existing trail that's not connected yet but will be in the future. In phase 2, that's with regards to this larger lot here, known as phase 2, lot 1 of block 17. The full width of Bowie Drive will be constructed prior to the first building permit, and the full width of Mount Bierstead Drive will be completed prior to the first CO. The reason for the phasing of this roadway is because currently the developer is working with the adjacent property owner to acquire additional right-of-way for full-width roadways in this area. So currently there's only half-width on the plat, but as part of the negotiations for the construction of the larger lot, the city is requiring that the full width of both roadways be constructed. Additionally, there'll be a sidewalk constructed on lot 1, block 17 along Tract JJ. So that will be just right here. So it will provide pedestrian access internal to the site. Again, just very quickly, this is phase 1 here. This is the full movements, and then the phase 2 here, and this is the right end here. So, so with all that, staff has reviewed this and does recommend approval. It is in compliance with the proposed plat and is in compliance with the Land Use and Development Code sections review. It also provides the developer and property owner with a clear path forward in terms of certain infrastructure improvements required and the timing of those improvements to be completed with the construction of buildings. The applicant, Mr. Josh Shipman, is here this evening if you have any questions regarding his plans. Your options this evening are to approve the item as presented via resolution, to approve the item with changes or conditions via the resolution, deny the item, or continue the item to a later date. And with that, I'm here if you have any questions. Of course, Mr. Shipman is as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lauren. Discussion, Councilmember Wallen.
Wow, exciting stuff happening out there. So I just wanted to make sure you said full width roadways is what, just want to make a note of that.
I had a feeling it would come up.
I appreciate that addition. So, and I think everybody out there will appreciate it too. Thanks.
Councilmember Johnston.
Yeah, thank you very much for this. And once again, well done in making sure that not just the streets are widened, but understanding that lot and what that means to that area because of the residents that have lived there for 10, 15 years in both of those streets that are about to come up. Well done. I always have a fear about streets, though, out here, obviously. And one of the questions I have is, at what point are we going to be able to take Mount Bierstead? Is that the road that is going to connect eventually? Is that the plan? It just looks weird on the map looking overall. like I'm looking at the turns and things that might happen right off a bridge in 50th, and just curious.
So I kind of provide this map here with a little more context. So this portion here, this is unplatted currently, and the city is reviewing preliminary plans for this, but nothing has been brought before you. But the plan would be that these two roadways would connect into the eventual project that would occur here. In addition, the traffic signals, that the pro rata share of traffic signals that's being given by this developer the developer for this project would also contribute to those traffic signals.
And that's Brookfield.
That is
we know?
Brookfield.
And they're on track as scheduled?
I know we are currently reviewing a proposal by them. I'm not certain the status of that completely, but I know that it is under review.
Are you referencing, Councilman, the roads specifically, or the development?
The entire development agreement as is.
Okay, thank you.
This looks good. That's actually all I have. Thank you very much.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Let's go back to one of the slides that showed right in, and I think maybe that would be it. So if I was traveling east on Bridge and I go out there and I turn north on 50th Avenue as though I was going to go to King Soopers, and now I want to get into this subdivision, where do I go to get in besides going down and flipping a U and come back and making a right in?
So you would enter in here at this entrance right here, across from the King Soopers entrance.
Okay, now there's a couple entrances on King Soopers. Is that the one that's further north, or is that one that is?
So that would be the furthest north one at this location.
Okay. Thank you.
That looks like a great big good football field. Why don't you just leave it there? Lots of soccer to be played on that. Any further discussion? Yeah, our baseball diamond. There you go. It really kind of does look like it'd be a big outfield. What's the pleasure of council? Councilmember Johnston?
I'd be happy and proud to approve motion 8D.
A motion, do I have a second? Councilman Wallen.
I'd be happy to second it. Thank you.
Have a proper motion and a second. Any further discussion? I just have to say, don't take our Papa Murphy's. You and I have to go toe-to-toe over that one yet. Roll call vote. All votes cast. Motion passes by a vote of 9-0. Thank you, Lauren. Next item on the agenda is reports. Reports by the mayor. It's been a busy couple weeks. I attended the Metro Mayor's Caucus. We heard a presentation by the Regional Air Quality Council. Very interesting stuff. It's amazing when they start breaking it down how often we pollute. And anyway, interesting stuff. We also heard a presentation from the initiatives that are going to be on Denver's ballot, in particular their right to rest and the take that they're taking on that. I attended the ACED, Adams County Economic Development Awards Luncheon. A wonderful afternoon, a great presentation by a woman who works at a company called Boom, and they're bringing back the old Sonic travel, they'll think of the Concorde, only smaller and quicker at reasonable prices, and that they're working on that in this area. It's not very far away in a couple years. But a highlight there was a Brighton business, the Watermill Express. If you're not aware, they are moving. As a matter of fact, I think they're moving this week or next week from their location over on South Main to Sable Boulevard. What's the name of that? The Sierra building, Sierra Systems. They're moving there in the next couple of weeks, this week and next week. And because of that, and because they were retained as a business and we didn't lose them, they got the retention award from ACED. It was a really nice event, and it was good to see Watermill Express be recognized. I had the opportunity to attend the Boys and Girls Club Gala in Denver for the whole Denver metropolitan area. Had a young woman from Brighton who was honored, but my wife and I had the honor of sitting at the table with the parents and the young woman who won the Youth of the Year for all of Denver Metro Boys and Girls Club, and ironically, her brother won it a year ago. But what a neat family. Attended an ACED executive meeting. I attended an E470 meeting where we are starting to put into place the 2019 strategic plan. Something that was brought up that was interesting there, they recognized their employees, much like we did, for the work they did during the big sonic boom blizzard, and or whatever it was called anyway. You don't think about it, but they turned the boardroom there into a shelter, and they had 52 people that stayed the night there, and they brought them in, but it affected people all across the region. And just last Friday night, Chief, your group did a great job as we attended the Brighton Police Department awards dinner. A great evening. I think when you go to that and you listen to all those stories and you see those officers get recognized, that's when you truly, really do realize the work that they do to keep us a safe community. And so kudos to the police department for all that they do and for that very lovely evening. And Friday night, my wife and I are going to go see Super Diamond, so we're looking forward to that. It's going to be fun. Department heads, reports? Anybody? City attorney? City manager?
Thank you, Your Honor. The main thing I wanted to bring to your attention tonight is we just recently, and this is a benefit for all of the snowpack that we've received this winter, we were able to fill Erger's Pond, and so that project has been going for quite some time. I think many of you have voted on that, felt like you voted on that many times, and it's a really good project, very positive for our community, and it was really neat. We got to go tour that as staff and really just kind of watch that process happen, and it was real positive. So we'll try to get some video soon of that and make sure that you have a chance to see that. But it's a really good conclusion or semi-conclusion to a very important project. So thank you.
Very good. I think we'll go to this end and start with Councilmember Mills.
Thank you, Mayor. Last week, I attended, I'm part of the Adams County Water Quality Association that meets quite rarely, so it's a great board to be on. But we had we didn't exactly have a quorum, but Metro Wastewater presented to us anyway, and they talked about the Second Creek pipeline project that they're proposing to put together that'll it's looking to start that project probably sometime next year, and they're going to have a couple public meetings coming up for the public that live near the project, and there will be a meeting it's May and June. I know Riverdale Golf Course is going to have one of the meetings, and both Commerce City Rec Centers will be part of that meeting cycle. I also attended the police awards ceremony, just like a lot of people did here at this dais, and it was great to hear a lot of the stories and a lot of the positivity that comes out of what our frontline officers do in our community. I brought my family to the downtown Springfest briefly on Saturday afternoon, and it wasn't as warm as other years, but that's okay. We all live in Colorado and know those temperature swings. Tomorrow I got Brighton Urban Renewal Authority, and we will have our we haven't had a meeting in the last couple cycles due to some other issues, but looking forward to that. And also, if that meeting isn't too long, I and hopefully a lot of people here will go to the United Power Dinner and Award meeting. They always do a good job presenting to the public and feeding a great dinner, so go to that. And also, if any of you have a bike, go to the Full Moon Bike Ride on Saturday. That's starting up this month on the Saturday. So thanks.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilmember Blackhurst.
Thank you, Mayor. Also attended the Police Department Awards ceremony, and like several of us that were there, really enjoyed it. It was great to hear the stories and to see the awards that were given out, not only to the officers, but the support staff, and also to a couple of citizens. Lloyd Land received an award, and I haven't seen Lloyd for quite a while, and that was good to hear that story about him assisting with a homicide investigation.
Right.
On Thursday, the county recognized the Victim Rights Week. I was out there to that resolution, and then also that evening they had their county-wide Victim Rights Award ceremony, and I want to point out to everybody that I think it's kind of the main award that was given out, the Sean May Award, went to the Brighton Commerce City Sexual Assault Task Force. So then again, it was an excellent recognition for the absolutely super job that they do on a regular basis, and something that we all in Brighton should be very, very proud of, the good work. And again, Chief Southard, under his leadership, and Chief Nichols from Commerce City put that together. I don't know if there's another one like it in the state of Colorado. Is there, Chief? And yet it's been extremely successful. This sounds bad on the face of it, but it really needs to appreciate that they've had over a 50% increase in the number of reported sexual assaults. And I don't think we can say that there have been an increase in the actual occurrences of sexual assault, but what that should tell all of us is that we're getting the job done in getting people to come forward to actually report those sexual assaults because of the way that we do this with You Have Options and with the Sexual Assault Task Force. So I thought that was important to point that out. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilwoman Pollock.
A couple of weeks ago, we had Parks and Recreation, and of course, they came before us this evening with many of the things we discussed. However, we also got to judge the Arbor Day poster contest, and that was a tough one. I tell you, those kids are really talented, and so it was difficult, but had a good time. Also a reminder of the rededication of Baja Park, which will be May the 18th from 10 to 2. We're going to have food, so come out and enjoy. It's so exciting. It's a big deal for my ward, and I'm sure for the rest of Brighton. Thank you.
Councilman Wallen.
Let's see. The Eye for Art Committee met again, which means there'll be a show coming around, some of the art going out and new art coming in here pretty soon. So that was always a fun meeting. The Brighton Public Art Committee had its first retreat a couple weeks ago, and we had a special guest, Suzanne Jansen, who's the public arts manager for the city of Loveland, come down and visit with us. And it was, if you've ever been to Loveland and seen some of their public art, you would know that they know what they're doing. But they've got quite a head start on us. But it's good to hear from her all the pitfalls and those things as we're starting to develop our plan and strategy for public art throughout the city of Brighton. So that was a real good one. And also would want to say a shout out to our member Jim Peters, who led a portion of the retreat, going through sort of our vision statement and mission and what we're all about. And I think he did a fantastic job, and we didn't have to hire a consultant. This guy is awesome. So, and then also the Lodging Tax Committee met, and we are finalizing some changes to the application process. We are trying to make it easier, but as you can imagine, there's a lot of legal ramifications when you're giving out grants. So being very, very purposeful about that. So yeah, and also there were some concerns at that meeting from the lodging industry partners that this year may not show the same types of lodging revenues as has been in the past. Last year apparently was a really good year for some reason. And there's some concern about our neighbors and friends and guests from the oil and gas business potentially impacting the lodging as well. So that is what I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple things. The ACC in connection with our attorney, there seems to be some talk still going on, but it's kind of it's talk, and the can continues to get kicked down the road. The Brighton Police Awards dinner was something to be proud of for our particular city and for certainly all the policemen. And you would think that certain people would not lose their cell phone out there, but fortunately it did reappear. I actually drove by the Spring Fest at this point in time. I drove by on the north side and on the south side and east and west of it, but I did not attend it. But it seemed to be well attended. Today we had the meeting for Eagle View Adult Center, and things are still progressing very well, although the numbers have kind of plateaued for this past month or so, simply because of, due to the weather conditions, there have been 7 trips that have been canceled due to safety reasons for snow and ice and whatnot. And of course, that being our main concern, we don't want to get a bunch of seniors out on the road and not have them be able to return. So there's been 7 trips that have been canceled, and obviously with the weather and shutting down the city services, numerous classes were canceled and whatnot. And even though there were still people coming trying to get in when they probably should have been home. But anyway, it's doing really well, and the volunteer recognition is tomorrow from 2 to 4, I believe.
Correct.
Thank you, Mayor.
Councilwoman Baca.
Thank you, Mayor. So the presentation I gave at the study session last week, I'll be making that presentation tomorrow night at the Denver Regional Council of Governments, and that is the $34 million in transportation funding, the suite that Adams County is putting forward. That is going to be a presentation to the 7 county, the metro counties. And as I mentioned last week, that's going to be the first stop of many before that entire suite of projects is completely approved and money allocated, and the final approval we're anticipating will happen in August. I have meetings coming up at the end of the month for the North Area Transportation Alliance and also Smart Commute Metro North. I do want to mention that the G-Line grand opening is on Friday the 26th. And they're going to do, if weather permitting, they're supposed to do a satellite photo. We have on the Smart Commute Metro North board, we have someone there from Digital Globe, and Digital Globe, if you know, they do satellite imagery and imaging. So if you happen to attend that, it's possible that they're going to send the satellite over at the same time to take a picture of that grand opening. So please try to attend that. So the other thing that's coming up is Smart Commute Metro North, their 7th annual Trans Forum, and that's going to be at the Amazon Den 3, which is the Thornton Amazon Fulfillment Center. So you should have received emails. Those that are that will attend, you should have received an email so you can get your security clearance to get into that facility. So Amazon was really excited to host this event for us, and we'll get to take a tour of their facility and see how they move. See how they move our packages around in that facility. So that's all I have.
Thank you.
Yep.
Councilman Humbert.
Okay. I also attended the Egg Dash. I really think the name should be changed to Egg Scramble.
Yeah.
Because that's what it looks like they're doing. And I was at the Parks and Recreation Board meeting where Council Member Mary Ellen was a judge, and I said, who am I to judge? So I didn't. I attended Stars of Tomorrow, of course, which isn't part of our stuff, but it was a well-attended, great night, and at the same kind of thing, I attended the first Lenten luncheon, which was Monday at First Presbyterian. There was one today at the Adventist Church, and tomorrow it's at Brighton United Methodist Church. I think they do potato soup every year. Then Thursday it's at the Healing Place. Friday it's at Zion Lutheran. All of them are noon to 1, although you're often going to stay there and talk to people because there are a lot of people who want to confer about various fun things, mostly. Missing some things. I attended Historic Preservation. The commission is looking at a new master map that would show our entire sphere of influence, but also we hope to draw membership from that entire sphere of influence. And we have national people coming to tour Brighton and Boulder in June. April 30th. And that's the for the conference, right? Yeah. And there's a larger conference that will bring more people here in June. Thank you.
Councilman Johnston.
Yeah, Egg Dash was great. Don't mind the idea of the scrambled part, but it was great. My little daughter, she's not 3 yet. She will be in May, and she didn't get that. You get a bunch of eggs, so she did get 1 egg out of it. But it was it's a great event, and it was well done, well planned, and it's one of those events that just keeps coming, and it feels good no matter the weather or anything. Well done. So that's the good part. Bad part is I need to speak about our only mouthpiece that we have as a council and as a city is Channel 8 and our social media platforms that come from one of our departments. And I have been tracking some of the analytics at the general level as much as I have been able to. And I'm sad to report that what has been seen and what is coming from our city that the public sees and that we all see lacks professionalism in certain ways, but it also, the bias that is being shown and some of the tricks that are being played on social media that I've caught, I will no longer take. No longer will I take it. Every Tuesday from now on during this time, I'm going to bring that information and these stats on any bit of that bias that occurs. And until something is done, I've talked both to the mayor and to the city manager about this issue, yet it continues. Many ads are getting sponsored on Facebook based on the person or the council member that department would like to have sponsored on Facebook. Some of the ads that are sponsored, both on Nextdoor and Facebook, it's disgusting. But beyond that, it's the lack of information that's coming to the public that I constantly hear complaints about. So from now on, every Tuesday during this time, I will discuss this and I will be bringing in the evidence to make sure that we all know till something's done. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
I'd like to make a motion that we go into executive session for the purpose of determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategies for negotiations, and or instructing negotiators under CRS Section 24.6.402.4E regarding farmland acquisitions.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
So moved.
So seconded. I have a motion and a second to go into executive session. Roll call vote. All votes cast. Motion passes by a vote of 9-0. We will be going into executive session.